what are you doing here? Franz hesitated for a moment at her sharp question, then bit his lip. Elisia quickly grabbed the plunging neckline of her dress, unintentionally pressing her hands to her chest. But she couldn't let it go, she would not accept appearing inappropriate in front of Franz. She had to appear as an ideal princely wife in his presence, even though she was very angry with him for his sudden entry. She took a deep breath, then said in a calm voice, I came to the palace as your wife, but the wedding has not taken place yet. Get out now. I swallowed those harsh words with difficulty. Then she looked at the door that Sarah had closed with determination, and added, being with you in a closed room is completely inappropriate, so what about me in this form? Don't you care about my reputation? Franz's eyes widened at her cold accusation, and he quickly shook his head to explain himself. No, not like that. Not at all. I just wanted to ask you about your meeting with Her Majesty the Empress. You should have gone after asking. Or waited until I was fully dressed. Franz pressed his forehead, looking extremely annoyed. At that moment, Elisia remembered Sarah's previously happy features as she closed the door. She began to realize the reality of the situation. Sarah must have arranged this. Perhaps Franz simply came to ask after Gerard left, but Sarah shrewdly pushed him in, thinking it would bring them closer together. Sarah, why are you doing things I didn't ask you to do? There is no doubt that Sarah thought she was helping her, knowing Elisia's hatred for Franz. She had been talking a lot about its merits lately, and now she was resorting to tricks. I'll talk to her sternly later. Aleisha sighed. Sarah had always insisted that Elisia should marry a man she loved, a sentiment inherited from her mother. But it was clear now that Sarah was serious. It seems my maid asked you something inappropriate. I apologize. Elisia took a step back, feigning embarrassment. Franz moved toward her unintentionally, causing her to stumble backwards suddenly. Her skirt tangled around her legs. Elisia fell backwards onto the bed. Yes. Aleisha. Franz rushed to grab her, and collapsed on top of her at the same time. Are you well? One of his hands was under her head, and the other was resting on the bed. The sunlight from the window illuminated his golden hair, and his golden eyes stared at her anxiously. His large hand was touching her cheek, and she was trembling slightly. What is he doing? Elisia looked at him carefully. He seemed afraid, of what? She didn't know. Before she could think further, Franz spoke in a low, sincere voice, Don't run away from me. Stay with me, always. Hearing his desperate voice, Elisia closed her eyes tightly. Was he afraid I would leave him? She opened her eyes slowly, and looked to the side. Franz was not himself. His look, filled with emotion, confused her. He was staring at her body with obvious concern, as if he feared he had hurt her, despite his huge body. Are you hurt somewhere? His voice stopped suddenly when his eyes fell on her exposed neckline. He quickly became confused and looked away. You look fine. Yes, thanks to you, Elisia answered coldly as she sat down. Franz immediately backed down. The bed moved slightly due to their movement, but neither of them moved further. Elisia was still trapped between his strong thighs, facing him in an awkward position. Franz was on his knees on the bed, staring at her intently. She looked away from him, annoyed by his look. Her Majesty the Empress received me warmly. She even gave me the necklace she wore at her wedding. Elisia quickly changed the subject, but Franz remained silent, watching her silently. Nothing happened to worry about. So, she stopped talking, and gently placed her hand on his chest, intending to push him away. But before she could quite touch him, Franz suddenly rose to his feet. I'm happy about that. He got up quickly, his face pale and confused. Aleisha looked at him in confusion. What's wrong with him? Him touching me would be in his best interest. Neutralizing mana requires physical contact. Franz was suffering greatly from a mana disorder in his body, and naturally he needed her touch. However, he backed away from her as if touching her scared him, as if she was the one who had assaulted him. The situation was so ridiculous that a bitter laugh escaped her lips. If anyone saw them like this, they would think that she was the one being attacked, but Franz acts as if he is the victim. If nothing else, I would like to rest now. Franz nodded slowly at her cold tone, still pale-faced. Elisia said in a flat tone, "You know, I can't neutralize the mana until the wedding takes place. Why do you keep saying that?" His low, harsh voice interrupted her. "Because this is protocol?" Franz stared at her intently, his lips trembled, and he murmured in pain, "Because it's your duty, is that just why you do it?" "Yes, it is my duty." Elisia sighed quietly and continued, "I know my place very well. I am just a tool to neutralize your mana. I will not ask for love. I will not disturb you, so you can rest assured. That doesn't worry me." He remained standing stiffly until she finished speaking, then he said, "What worries me is, Aleisha, Liz, that you might." Franz clenched his fists tightly. Elisia was silent, waiting for his words. Finally, after taking a deep breath, he forced himself to utter, "To hate me." His golden eyes were pleading with her emerald ones. "That's what I fear. That you will despise me." Elisia's hand trembled as she adjusted the collar of her dress. Then she quickly turned around and whispered in a low voice, "You are worrying unnecessarily." "Unnecessarily? I am your wife. How could I dare to hate you?" She turned her face away from him, but he approached her quietly, gently held her chin, and turned her face toward him again. His gaze was filled with longing. "So, Aleisha," he leaned closer to her, his warm breath touching her lips. As for his other hand, it held her shoulder gently, and its heat was like flames on her skin. "I'm the one who's supposed to be the fire, not him. So why?" Franz was always cold, she had never felt warmth from him before. But now she was surprised by his heat, so she lowered her gaze, and his lips moved closer. "Prove to me that you don't hate me." His lips approached very gently. His hand moved from her chin to stroke her cheek, his fingers touching her trembling eyelashes. "If you hate me, push me away." Elisia stared at his close lips, then slowly closed her eyes.